There we go.
All right. All right, everybody. Thank you. Sorry for the delay. And thanks for being here. My name is Roger Stacy. I am the DI sales manager at EMG. I've got a pretty broad and extensive background in DI. So I am here along with the rest of our team to help you with any DI situations, sales situations that you might have. So never hesitate to reach out to us. First, I want to congratulate you for attending. Today we're going to talk about a sales strategy that will really set you apart from the crowd. So I hope that you find some great value here. And so we'll go ahead and kick it off. So we are here to talk about disability income and a sales strategy that takes most of the perceived difficulty out of the disability income sales and buying process. And disability income has a kind of a reputation for being difficult to sell and to buy. And, in large part that's deserved because it's a little different, but the more you know, the easier it becomes, and you sort of understand what the roadblocks are and can anticipate those, and as a result make it easy. But so we're going to talk about a concept called guaranteed standard issue, or GSI. Now, GSI is not a product. Disability income is the product, but GSI, or guaranteed standard issue, is a sales strategy. So here's kind of a high level technical definition of what GSI is. It's designed to provide individual DI coverage to a group of individuals working in a profession and in professional and executive occupations with the same employer. So a major feature of GSI is, that it is guaranteed standard issue. So that means that everyone who meets the conditions for eligibility will be issued a policy at a standard class with discounted unisex rates. So keep in mind, not everybody qualifies for GSI. This is kind of a footnote disclaimer, but GSI is based on a number of factors, which we will review as we go through this presentation. So here's some key features of GSI. It is individual long-term disability policies, and as a result, you get the best definitions of disability, and you also get rate guarantees. The GSI cases are, as I mentioned, unisex rates, and you typically get discounts of between 10 and 30%. And that's based on the size, the number of lives in the case. There is minimal medical underwriting, and we'll take a look at what that is. Very flexible plan design. You can actually qualify for guaranteed standard issue disability coverage with as few as 5 lives. And so that's huge. And it provides important coverage to some people who could not otherwise qualify. DI has some pretty extensive underwriting, and unlike life insurance, they're looking for things that could potentially cause somebody to have an extended absence from work. So you have somebody that qualifies for super preferred on life insurance. They could actually be declined potentially, or have some exclusions on their DI policy. So the fact that you can provide this product under this strategy really is huge benefit for a lot of people. The policies, although they're sponsored by the employer, they're all individually owned and fully portable with the premium discount. So if somebody retires, takes a new job, gets laid off, whatever it might be, these policies can follow the insured. So individual disability income, I'm making some assumptions that those here on the call have some familiarity with the product, but it is guaranteed renewable. So, once you get the coverage, you don't have to requalify every 3 years or whatever it might be, such as with group long-term disability. There are optional benefit periods that you can design the case around, including 2, 5, 10-year or to age 65 and age 67 monthly benefits. Those benefit prices are heavily influence the cost of the coverage. So the fact that you have those various benefit periods available allows you to find a product that fits a budget. There are optional riders, which include residual disability, cost of living adjustments, and catastrophic disability. So I won't define those here in this conversation, but I am happy to get into that with anybody that wants to know the details of those riders. And I'll have my contact information up at the end of this presentation. And as I mentioned, they're fully portable. These individual policies are fully portable with the group discount. So, there's really no better way for an individual to buy disability than through a GSI plan. And for an advisor, there's really no better way to sell it than through this strategy as well. So, now I've talked about kind of why would you sell it, but let's look at some more detail. First, it provides a highly valuable benefit. For me personally and everybody I talk to, when you think about the consequences of being disabled, not being able to go and earn your paycheck, it's just huge. And, the fact that you can take it with you is just great. So I think that most people agree. And, if they don't really know the consequences of being disabled, you can just ask them, how long can you pay your bills without your paycheck? And that'll give you a pretty clear or give them a pretty clear indication of the importance of having coverage like this. The GSI avoids medical and financial underwriting of purchasing the policy on an individual basis. So, that's a huge obstacle. Some people just don't want to deal with providing all of the underwriting, and DI is based on somebody's income. So there's financial underwriting as well as medical underwriting. And so the fact that we take most of that element out of this process really makes it convenient. And as I mentioned, it provides a benefit to individuals who may not otherwise qualify. For the advisor, you're selling multiple policies on a simplified worksite enrollment basis. So, great daytime activity. And again, the fact that you sell multiple policies, potentially creating additional clients for yourself as their needs change or they have additional needs. So it's really a fantastic thing for the advisor. I mentioned the policies are owned by the insured and are portable, and it enhances your relationship with the client. Honestly, there's just not a lot of people out there talking about GSI. They may be talking about group term or group long-term disability, maybe, or maybe not. But, it's a great business for somebody to be in because it's a highly valuable and highly needed product, and there's just not much competition. So you are really going to set yourself apart from the crowd with your clients, with your prospects, by bringing them a concept that chances are they have not heard about. And typically the people that, are really interested in it are the high earners, the business owners, the executives, because there's something that's called reverse discrimination in disability benefits, which I'll cover here in a minute. So they're the ones that are most effective. So if you have relationships with those folks, it's worth talking to them. Yeah, here's the reverse discrimination I'm talking about. So typically, group long-term disability caps coverage at 60% of pre-tax income. And I, use 10,000 a month. It's a nice round number. Some people go up to 15,000, but you rarely see higher than a $15,000 a month group benefit. So in this example of 60% of pre-tax income, those earning over 200,000 don't get 60% of their pre-tax income covered, right? So that's where the so-called term of reverse discrimination comes into play. Those high earners are not getting the same benefit in this situation as those earning under 200,000. The group benefits are taxable, so that 60% of income are further eroded in terms of spending power by income taxes. And, so a certain case design allows you to layer another level of coverage over and above that group coverage to bring high earners on par with the lower earning group. So, and we'll take a look at that. I'll give you an example. I talked about the taxability of group disability. So here's just an example of an individual with $100,000 salary, just making the math real easy. The group pays 60% of base salary. So in this instance, it would be $5,000 a month or $60,000 if an individual is disabled. So after tax, and again, I'm using a really a 10% federal income tax bracket here, not considering any other taxes or whatever. So this could be particularly generous example. But at 10% income tax, they would be receiving $4,500 or $54,000 a year. So, before disability, this individual is probably used to living on maybe 75,000 of take-home pay. And now at disability, their income has gone down to 54,000. So, I doubt that a disabled person's financial obligations go down during a period of disability, right? So now they're dealing with a reduced income, potentially a higher need for income to help them adjust to a disability. So you can go in and talk to these companies and talk about how GSI can pick up most of the difference between an individual's full take-home pay and group benefits. So this is an example of layering coverage on top of the group benefits. So let's talk about who are the great prospects and a couple of case design examples. I just covered the layering on top of group benefits. So, and insurance companies that sell GSI like to see group long-term disability in place. So this is not necessarily meant to replace group long-term disability, although it can. The ideal situation is that you're layering it on top. They have several high income earners. And if you recall the $200,000 cutoff that I mentioned in a previous slide, so they have some high earners that actually reach the benefit ceiling and have that reverse discrimination situation going on. So professional firms, accountants, attorneys, companies with large management teams, sales professionals, people that have variable compensation, and maybe their group benefits only cover their base salary. That's another example of the reverse discrimination. White collar occupations are the ideal situation. Now, physician groups are available for GSI, but through specialized outlets. Insurance carriers, physicians are the biggest buyers of disability income insurance. So if you have doctor clients, they've been hearing, they know about disability income. So, be sure and talk to those folks, make sure that it's up to date, make sure it's kept up to date with their salaries. But if you have a physician group, insurance companies would shy away from those, but there are other, like I said, specialized outlets that we can deal with. So don't be discouraged. Don't walk away. Those are huge cases. And also certain blue collar occupations, not high risk occupations, but there are options for that as well. But those, white collar professionals, management, those are really the ideal candidates and the ones that you would have an easier time designing the case for. So there are two key plan types. First, there is employer paid with 100% participation from eligible classes, and that's better known as mandatory coverage. Second, there's voluntary. The employer sponsors it and gets it set up, but employees actually purchase this on their own, and they pay for it. But they do get the same premium discount as other cases. Now, employer paid is certainly the preferred design by insurance carriers because you have a better defined class. The premiums are going to be paid by the employer and you will get better offers. But, the benefit world is evolving along with, everything that's happening. Sometimes companies are just giving employees money to buy their own benefits or to supplement their own benefits. So where that is occurring, a voluntary plan design could be appropriate. So let's take a look at the employer paid or the so-called mandatory plans. Employer chooses which employees to cover. It can be all employees, assuming they're not in a high risk role, or a select group. And a select group could be, all management or all salespeople, but it has to be a well-defined group, right? The employer just can't go out and handpick people that are have a disability claim waiting, at the doorstep. So the employer pays the premium, and everybody within that eligible class has to participate. So that gives the insurance carriers the comfort that they have a nice spread of risk across that plan. So with an employer paid plan, this is where you can have a GSI case with as few as 5 lives. Now that varies among carriers, but there are some carriers that'll go down to 5 lives. So it doesn't really take a lot. You don't have to have a large company necessarily to qualify. So be on the lookout for that. And as I mentioned, the eligible class has to be clearly defined and it has to be identifiable. So That's important. The voluntary plan design, typically the employee pays it, or the employee always pays it, but it's done through payroll deduction. The participation requirements are 10% of eligible employees, or it can go down to as low as 10 lives. So the greater of those two. It can never, voluntary plan will never be done for less than 10 lives. But if you have, more than 100 of eligible employees, then it's going to be more than 10 lives because it has to be 10%. The coverage options and the benefit amounts are typically reduced for voluntary cases when compared to the mandatory cases. Again, just because you don't necessarily aren't guaranteed that spread of risk. And the insurance carrier will want to know an agent's marketing plan for how they plan to drive enrollment to meet that minimum participation requirement. So, as I mentioned, mandatory is certainly the preferable design from a insurance company perspective. So here's a kind of a high-level case design for the employer-paid case. There's a 190 employee accounting firm, and they currently offer group long-term coverage, long-term disability covering 60% of pre-tax salary to a $15,000 maximum. So that drives that up. That covers everybody earning up to $300,000. So that's a nice benefit. But they have 21 employees that earn more than 300,000. So those 21 employees don't have 60% of coverage. So this employer has chosen only to build the plan around this group of 21 high earners. So the insurance company here made an offer of an additional $7,500 monthly benefit on top of the group coverage. So that would cover, I think, people earning up to about $450,000 or so. Cover them up to 60%. So, I mean, that is the example of a kind of an executive carve-out situation that was designed. So here you have 21 individuals getting individual policies paid fully by the employer. It's a great benefit for those employees. It results in additional loyalty, additional goodwill, and make sure that everybody throughout the whole company has an equal percentage of their income covered by disability. And this is clearly an additional perk for these 21 individuals, right? So this is an executive benefit in this situation. Voluntary. Here's an example of a case design. This is a family-owned printing shop. Now, it's not limited to small businesses at all. This is just an example. But their current coverage protects 60% of the pre-tax salary with a $3,000 maximum benefit. So I believe that covers people earning $60,000 or less at 60%. So their benefit budget's tight. So they offer voluntary benefits to allow employees to purchase other benefits with their own money, but they can beef them up. They get preferred underwriting and things like that. So the voluntary GSI provides optional coverage to the employees, and it keeps the cost down for the employer. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the voluntary benefit world, and it also creates a certain element of employee satisfaction when they can go in and have those benefits available at a preferred cost, preferred underwriting, whatever it might be. And in this case, it's both, because they get the same discount. They'll get a discount. And here the offer was to cover up to 75% of an individual's income, with an additional up to $4,000 a month on top of the $3,000. So that actually covers people earning up to like $140,000 or something like that. So, in a smaller family-owned company, there's a lot of, there's going to be less of those $450,000 salaries. So that's what a voluntary case looks like. You would have to, again, I don't know what this particular carrier's criteria were, but you have to have at least 10 lives or 10% participation, the greater of those two. Now, I know we've got some chats and Q&As, and we will take a look at those as soon as we get through these slides. So we'll get back to you. So underwriting, there is preferred, there is minimal underwriting on these cases, but there is no doubt there's underwriting, but it's underwriting of a little bit of a different kind. So you would want to be prepared, going into a situation like this, to the information that you would need to know to provide to the carrier. First, they're going to take a look at the company, how long they've been in business, what industry they're in. If it's a 1-year-old startup, they're not going to write that business. Typically, it has to have at least 3 to 5 years in business, looking profitable, being a recognized industry, a legal industry, things like that. So the insurance company will get the name. The advisor will answer some of these questions, but they'll do some background check on the company. Second, they'll evaluate the proposed group. They'll look at the ages, they'll look at the gender, they'll look at the occupation. So, they like to keep the average age under 50. So if you bring a law firm with partners and the partners are all 70 years old, probably not going to get an offer. So, those are how that will be evaluated. Medical underwriting, there's usually just 3 or 4 questions on an application, and they're very broad and they're very general, but they focus on recent illness that would have caused an extended period of absence from work. And typically it's just looking backwards for like 6 months. So it's not, if somebody missed some work years ago, that's not going to come into play. It's really the past 6 months. Broken bones, that's okay. Things like that. But they're going to want to, if somebody checks the box, yes, I had to alter my work schedule, I missed work for 2 months, whatever, they're going to ask why that is. Medical underwriting also focuses on current presumptive disability. So if somebody has lost use of their eyes, their ears, any of their limbs, that would be an issue, because those under disability are just considered presumptive disability. So that policy could be issued with those, if it is issued, could be issued with those situations excluded from coverage. They look at cognitive issues, like have there been any strokes or other cognitive issues that they have a history with, and if they can perform or really not perform any of the activities of daily living. So, but again, those are broad questions, and most people that are actively at work are able to answer those as no, which is the best answer to have on those applications. But if they're answered yes, it doesn't eliminate them necessarily, but it does create another level of underwriting. So it's simplified, it's easy underwriting, much easier than people buying on an individual basis. So some conditions to qualify. The participants have to be on the employer-provided census and part of a well-defined eligible group. We covered the well-defined eligible group, and I've got the word census bold because that's really where this all starts. You have to get a census from the company of the people that they want to cover. So whether that's everybody or a certain group need a census, names, dates of birth, gender, ideally tobacco usage, incomes, occupations, and we have the template for that. So, if you run into a case, we can get that census to you, but that's where it all starts. That's what you have to get. If you have somebody that says, yeah, I'd be interested in seeing, what we could do, get the census. The participants must have been actively at work for the past 6 months. Now, if a participant has their own disability coverage in force already, that's going to be taken into consideration. Insurance companies have limits as to how much they'll issue at certain earnings levels. So if they have coverage already that's up against that number, they're not going to issue coverage on that person. But that's not necessarily a very common situation. But let me mention too that if they do, and that's usually where people are really earning high amounts. I mentioned the physician groups at the outset of this meeting, is that don't walk away from that because we have outlets for really high earners. So, but just so this note addresses the traditional insurance carrier markets. So you can't have too much coverage already in force. They don't want to incentivize somebody to go out on a disability where they make more money on a claim than at work. And finally, participants must not have been declined or postponed for any DI coverage in the past 12 months. Now, a lot of carriers have stopped asking that question. So that's, maybe 50-50 where they'll even ask about anything beyond 6 months. And the all-important compensation question. These are individual policies. And so depending on the number of lives and the premium discount that the carrier offers, the first year compensation is 30 to 50% of the premium. And, where the money is in DI is in renewals, right? You're getting 10% renewals years 2 through 10. And you get full first year commission on increases and additions. So as they hire new people, as people's salaries increase and the employer decides to increase the coverage along with the salary increases, the advisor continues to get paid on those cases. So, it's really lucrative for you to write this. Just imagine, writing 1 or 2 cases a year, and you've got those renewals building and you've got those increases coming in. It just becomes an automatic income generator for you over the years. So DI is, it's a magical product for the insured. I think it's a magical product for the advisor too, just in terms of setting you apart from the competition who just, most people don't want to talk about it, and also to reward you personally through really strong compensation. So that brings me to the end of the formal presentation, and I am certainly ready to answer any questions that you might have. Here is my contact information, so certainly feel free to reach out to me.
Hey everyone, so for questions, what we can do is you can either type in the chat or you can just use the little icon that says raise hand and I can unmute you. But let's go ahead and answer Brian's question for Roger. Would you be able to expand on the other outlets that physicians would need to take?
That physicians would need to take? Sure. There are groups like Lloyd's of London, for example, that or other non-traditional insurance carriers that will write that sort of coverage. So, typically an insurance carrier's coverage in total, whether it's one carrier or three, is going to be limited to $30,000, $35,000, maybe $40,000 on any single life. So, once you get somebody, that's earning $750,000, $800,000, $900,000, whatever it is, they just can't buy anymore with the traditional markets, the carriers. But there are groups like Lloyd's and a couple of others that will take, what's called the excess coverage. So the coverage looks a little bit different. It's not, the benefits aren't quite as, the benefits look very much the same, but they're typically renewable after every 5 years and things like that. But they are out there and available, and we have access to them.
Okay, great. Thank you, Roger. So I guess that answered Brian's question, and I don't see anything else in the chat or any other raised hands. So I guess we'll go ahead and end this webinar. Thank you again, Roger, for instructing us, and thanks everyone for holding on through the bit of technical issues we were having earlier. But we'll go ahead and end it now, and everyone have a good day.
Thank you.